So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on my session about cookies. In fact, in common, we can say it's a session about cookies. And it's my last session here on TTP 2019 in Rotterdam. And unfortunately, I leave and I'm driving home today late night. So, let's start. When we talk about cookies, it's always related to SAML. Of course, there are other technologies like JSON Web Tokens, but in common, SAML is still industry standard, and it is related to cookies. SAML, we do not talk about SAML today. We just need to know that it's a way how we can deliver the information about the user's identity in between IdP and SP in a trusted way. That's very important. I want to underline this, that it needs to be provided or delivered in a trusted way. SP, service provider, this guy needs to know who is the user, and IdP, the identity provider, is required to provide the information for SPs. So usually we have one IdP and more SPs. Of course, in the real life, and this is unfortunately growing, you can challenge more than one IdP. It makes it very interesting. But in fact, what we will talk about today is not affected by this. So if you have more than one IdP, it still can work, and maybe it even can better work in such environment. Yeah. In common, IdP can be used because your SPs or the SPs your users are using does not have implemented some special features, like multi-factor authentication or pro and code for handling user credentials. By the way, we've been discussing this during my Monday session about LDAP. This is a very similar situation. Yeah? If you have LDAP enabled up, you do not know. You can test, you can try, you can prove, but if you need to prove 100 LDAP enabled apps, it's almost impossible in the real world. But if you need to prove just one IdP, it's quite okay, and you can do it, and then you can delete it. So that's why I remind my LDAP session, because in this it's very similar. But of course, the real reason why customers are investing money, efforts, whatever, in IdP deployment is single sign-on. So, single sign-on, what is that? The holy grail of authentication, because users, they are lazy, they need to work in an effective way, they do not need to, they can't lose their time. So s.r.o is the great thing we can offer them. Of course, if the user needs to authenticate to many SPs, as I mentioned already, IdP must provide the user's identity again. Each SP is asking IdP who is the user, and of course, in reality, it can happen many times. So it doesn't work like one SP is asking once, but quite often one SP is asking many times who is the user. So here we can mention that the number of requests your IdP is able to handle in a second is quite important. Yeah? So if your IdP by design is not fast enough, then at the end you have 6 services ADFS. Did I say ADFS? Sorry. So SAML as a standard is in fact all donkey. I even hear reactions like, oh, you still work with SAML? It's old. Yeah, it's old, but everybody has it. Yeah? you can find IdPs and SPs with SAML support. It's de facto an industry standard. And what we can see, again, I did mention this also on Monday, Microsoft knows it. So that's why they design a tiny browser, yeah? And you can install this tiny browser into almost anything. I think that only Linux does not support it, and maybe it supports it now because this information is quite old. So you can install tiny browser into everything, into Outlook and client, Microsoft. So of course, it does not work. Oh, of course, it's a business thing, but it does not work with on-prem servers. It works with cloud because Microsoft wants to switch all the customers to cloud and charge and more. Yeah. Who has experience with this tiny browser? You try it? You? Perfect. 2 people? Okay. So you can try it. Yeah. I do not adore Microsoft, but that's very, very nice proof that this makes sense and it's not omitted by major players on the market. Yeah. Of course, it can work with virtually any IdP, including your local IdP, your local user source, if it's able to provide the information needed for unique identification of your user. So, you know, if you are experienced with, for example, Office 365, you know that you need email, like with Google, and you need your kind of GUID, yeah, or the user's GUID. Okay, how do they do it? Yeah. So the question is how IdP is able, how it's implemented to answer such requests so many times, again, because, you know, of course, it's not really easy. The browser is almost completely separated from your OS, sorry. So you can have 3 browsers that they do not know about each other, they cannot interact with the operating system. So what is there, what is available? It's a cookie. And I can say that this is like why majority of people all around the world is using Excel for keeping their secrets. The answer is easy. You sit in front of the tube. What I have here from my organization, Excel. Oh, it looks nice. I use it. And cookie is there. Yeah? But it's the weakest point because it was not designed for this at the beginning, and now it's used really widely for authentication. It works in that way, and I'm pretty sure that you know how it works, how it is designed, that inside the cookie, as a content of a cookie, is kept a kind of token, and the token can be read by IdP each time your browser gets redirected to IdP. IdP can read the token, the content of the cookie, validate it, and if it's still valid, it can use it. So from the user's point of view, it's not really fast, but it works, and the user does not need to authenticate again. Of course, if the token expires or the cookie is removed, then the user has to authenticate again. How it works? This is very easy example which shows like the SAML authentication to Google Apps is working. We have a user here, you know, and user using the browser does kind of ping pong, it gets redirected. So in this case, the user knocks the door, or the browser knocks the door. Google does not know who is the user, so the browser is redirected to IdP, and IdP generates an assertion. The assertion is stored in the request header, and the browser is redirected back to the SP, and if it's valid, then the user gets authenticated. Here are different approaches. You know, it varies if there is a URL which is always used for redirection from IdP to SP. if the URL is provided by the ESP when the browser is redirected to the IdP, it can come with this information, but it is not important. The important thing for our session today is that here, when the browser is connected to IdP, the IdP generates and stores the cookie on the browser side. Of course, if the user has to use several browsers, quite often because the stupid app, something is working with IE, something is working with Chrome, something is working with Firefox, then the user is enforced to use several browsers. Then this happens as many times as many browsers the user uses, and each browser keeps own cookie with a token. From my perspective, what I see in our customers, Chrome is becoming de facto standard now, almost because it is, let's say, doable. It is easy to manage it in a mass way. You can manage Chrome using GPO, and then that works very nice. Okay, so from here we have the cookie, and it's how it works. The cookie is owned, let's say, and protected by the identity of IdP's domain. So you know that servers from other domains cannot read this cookie. There's a security mechanism around cookies, but the cookie is completely handled and controlled by the browser. So, as I already mentioned, each browser has own cookies. There's no other way how to do it. And as I mentioned, the user has to authenticate as many times as many browsers he or she is using. And this is the devil hidden behind cookies, because server delivers a cookie with some attributes, and it can say, I want you to remove the cookie if, yeah? But the browser can ignore it. The user can modify the browser behavior and use different configuration, and then it doesn't work. I had a very nice discussion last year in Pro with Carla, you know her, and she said, cookies, that's the real pain for me. Yeah? And she told me about her users. So they change the browser. Of course, it's a academic work. It's academic freedom. I'm a professor. I can manage my computer. Forget about something, you know. So if they modify the browser, then the browser can keep the cookie, for example, forever. Yeah? And then what can happen if the user restarts the browser, start it again, the cookie is still there. So it's better SSO, because the cookie is there, it's still valid, just click and you are in. Of course, somebody else can be in, yeah, who is using your computer. That can also happen. Yeah? So that's what we have if the browser ignores instructions related to cookie or comes with the cookie. And also, you know that if we talk about environment, I mean IT environment with Windows, do you know where is the profile? Yeah, the profile can be local and only local, but not necessarily. Yeah. So that is the way how the cookie can be spread on more computers than only one if the browser is improperly configured. At the end, smart users believe that we win, and the IT department, poor IT staff lost. Which is not really nice, but that's the reality. It's like with ARP. You know, that's a weakness of IP communication. It's still weak. There is almost no solution. if you use Windows, because Windows ignore all the recommendations. Yeah? So there is recommendation, for example, that if you receive new ARP, you should ignore it for 5 minutes. You know about this? Some switches, they do this. But Windows accepts it like 1,000 changes within a second. Okay, come. At the end, you know, it's very easy to watch anybody in this room using something nice like Kind and Abel. You know those utilities, right? Who does not use Kind and Abel?
No, I don't.
Okay. You don't?
No, only if I'm frustrated.
Because you are the boss. You have staff to use it. Understand? Okay. But there is another problem. I'm involved in a very nice project in Sweden. The situation in Sweden is quite complicated. There are some even justice court cases, as I heard, in between Google and Microsoft. It's not clear who provides a secure cloud, who does not provide a secure cloud. I do not know real details, but the pain is s.r.o. S.r.o, single logout, that's something which is much more complicated than single sign-on. In fact, single sign-on is easy. Single logout is not easy to implement. So, why we need s.r.o? Because of the regulations. You know, it's like I want user to lock the computer every time the user leaves it. But imagine you drink coffee, tea, you need a toilet. If you are old, poor man, you need a toilet 5 times an hour. And that's real life, you know. I may not be thinking about these things 20 years ago, but now, let's say it's inside, yeah. So it's a pain, definitely. And if you use some shared computer, yeah, some kiosk, whatever, yeah, library computer, you need to think about s.r.o. Of course, again, this you know, is not a real standard. You can implement a very similar approach like with SSO. So you can have an assertion, yeah, and the s.r.o assertion is the same, except the title, which says logout. Yeah, you can have a login assertion, a logout assertion. But the question is how to implement it when you have many SPs, yeah, and after they've got the information from IdP who is the user, they don't care. Yeah? So they handle the connection whatever way. There are many ways the others can use, so it can be a real problem. There is so-called ping pong. You know that, for example, with Google, you can set where the browser should be redirected after the successful logout. Know about that? Have you tried? Yes. But, okay, looks like a solution. But the question is if the target URL is listening, and second, much more important, if you have the browser. Because the regular way how people today, you know, leave their computer is this. You have nothing here, yeah? Because it lost connectivity, it's closed, you know, it does not it does not listen, it does not work. So this is very nice, but usually not working. So that's why I say it can work theoretically, but in the real world, that's not the approach we can really use. So there are also other issues related to widely used IdPs. In Sweden, we hit Google, because Google is very strong in this, you know, so people sometimes use Google authentication services, let's say, without knowing it. Yeah? They just authenticate and they do not know, they do not care what is behind. So then, if you deliver s.r.o, because with s.r.o, you do not need a browser. If you know how to do that, if you have a server which can do it for you, which does it for you. So you can post the assertion to let's say a common entry point for such assertions. You can post it there and it works. Yeah? So you can post such assertion to Google and kill completely all the existing sessions of that user, which seems to be a solution, but it's not, because it can, as I mentioned, cause really unexpected kills. You know, with something which is private, which is not related to the school or job or whatever, and your users will, at least, will not like you. Yeah. So we have these issues. We are challenging these problems because with the browsers and cookies, we do not have what we need to handle authentication, logins, and logout in a proper way, in an effective way, in a smart way. That's that's the problem. Here is recapitulation of all the problems, and of course, if I return back to my note about Microsoft, we do not have browser-enabled apps only. We also still have native apps, and we will have native apps because there are some areas where browser does not make any sense at the moment. Even Microsoft does that lovely. When I seen this advert first time, you know about the advertising from Microsoft where they say, whatever you have from us is bad. It doesn't work really good. You should switch to cloud versions. You know that advert? I do not know if
The new one.
Me?
No, I mean the new advert where they
No, it's not my advert. It's in Czech TV.
Yeah, but it's from Microsoft and it's new, and they basically have an advert against their own on-prem.
Yeah. So it's like your wife is really ugly. You should switch to new one.
Yeah. No.
Sorry.
Our old one.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. So and of course there are other issues because I did mention the locking unlocking issue. This cannot be handled from within the browser. So you still need something more. And by the way, you know, locking and unlocking is really related to your authentication framework. Again, I know I see that most of you use Microsoft. Yeah. So you maybe know that Microsoft did announce, I think 2 months ago, that maybe it's already available. I really don't know. I've been really busy with taxes in March, so I lost my connection to reality a little bit. But they announced that Windows 10 will be able to work with any generic IdP. When I say Windows 10, I mean the built-in client which comes with Windows. You know, some people, especially users, they say, oh, I do not like clients. This is in Windows. Of course, the client is there. It's just installed automatically. And the client, Microsoft client, being able to authenticate against the domain only, yeah, till now. And if you authenticate successfully against the domain, the client being able to handle, to create a local profile for you, etc. You know how it works. So now Microsoft says that you can authenticate against any IdP. What that means? They really love SAML. They eat SAML, they sleep with SAML, they like SAML. Good. That means that Windows users can authenticate against our solution. Windows users can authenticate against any solution. Access Manager, session about Access Manager, and can authenticate against Access Manager and have almost the same functionality like if you were against domain, which is not bad. Yeah? Why they do it, I'm not sure really, but what I think they see customers and they are leaving domain from technical reasons. Yeah? and they want to keep them, to have them on the board. So, what to do? The common solution is a native client, like I mentioned, with a Windows built-in client. So, because with a native client, I mean OES client, you do not see almost all the limitations you have with browsers and cookies. With a native client, it can work, yeah. And how it can interact with browser-based apps, there is a technology called native host. To be honest, the implementation of this is not really the same. So yeah, it is native host, it is almost standard, but in reality you need to take care about different browsers from different vendors separately. It is not 100% same on Windows, Macintosh and Linux, but in fact it's there, and this can be handled by our vendor. So it's an information for you, but you really do not need to work with, to take care about that, because it's covered by your vendor, or can be covered by your vendor. This is not available on mobile devices. Yeah? Maybe there are some plans that this will be available on Android. Yeah? I do not know when, I do not know what portion of the whole standard will be implemented. What does it mean? Any SP or IdP, simply any browser-based solution, can interact using the native host broker with a native client. This has been designed for opposite direction. So the idea behind this technology at the beginning was that you authenticate, like with Dropbox. Yeah, you use a browser, you authenticate to cloud, and now you need to switch to the native host, something like a drive redirection. Yeah? And you do not want to authenticate again. So this is the way, because the native client, the drive redirector, can learn something, can get some information through this technology and use it to authenticate to the server, and you are in. We, and not only us, I know about others, use it in a totally opposite way. So what is authenticated first is not the browser, but the client, and the code in the browser can learn, can get the information through native host from the client. Clear advantage, no cookies. Again, no cookies. What do you need? You need so-called a browser extension, which is quite a standard thing. And it comes with so-called manifest, and the manifest tells the browser what to do. And the easiest way, our default manifest says, if it's come from HTTPS, make it available. That's it. Done. Yeah? So you need to deploy the extension, and then you need native host implementation. Yeah? How it can work? Yeah, it needs something which can prove the user's identity, because if we have the way how these parts can communicate, okay, they can communicate what they will handle. They need something which can prove the user's identity. Yeah. Of course, when we see the players, because I'm pretty sure that you use stuff from huge players like Microsoft and Micro Focus and other giants, but you also use something which comes from your surroundings, yeah? Your cafeteria provider. Yeah? So, of course, for those giants, it makes sense to invest and you know, offer something like Microsoft is a tiny browser. I'm pretty sure it was a real investment behind it, but for them it makes sense. Billions or hundreds of millions of customers will pay for this. Yeah. So, but what about the small vendors? And of course, what about anything you develop in-house? Yeah. In general, we have two options for the implementation. yeah, because this can be implemented on both the SP or IdP side. And what can be the trusted proof of the identity? That can be a certificate which is called officially X509 user attribute certificate, yeah, which is nothing else than signed XML file, like it works. You know, when we talk about tokens and certificates, and you try to read it with a hexadecimal editor, you see that it's this kind of information in common. Yeah. Then, when something like that is delivered, the SP or IdP can validate if it's okay, and if it's okay, then the users and it's no. It's very easy principle and very easy to understand. Yeah. Because we have native host technology, we have browsers, we have clients, we can, all of us here, we can implement it without any hacks. It can be a real standard, yeah, today. And then, when you want to deploy something like that, it is easy today to distribute those extensions and clients. Of course, you can do it using group policy, or if your situation is much better, you can do it with Zenworks. But it is doable even with a domain only. So how it works? It's very nice for NASPs, and I already mentioned this, without any support for any big standards, because you see a lot of, especially local vendors, and for them it does not make any sense to invest a month or two to implement SAML when they have two customers calling for it. Yeah? I'm visiting vendors like a human resources software. I've been 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago in a small city, and there was a small company, 5 parking slots. Yeah, they have 3,500 clients, companies, schools, 3,500. So from the Microsoft or Micro Focus point of view, that's not really big. From my point of view, it is big, yeah, 3,500. And they told me, yeah, we have heard about this, but I'm not sure, maybe 5 of them. Makes no sense. That's investment which cannot return. So they need something which is easy, yeah, because then you can convince them to do that. And that's same with your students, consultants, even teachers can implement something because it's easy. And there is also one advantage if you compare it with a cloud, because sometimes you see users complaining, oh, I don't like to work with that because I need to authenticate twice. In fact, it is not true. The user has to tell the server who she or he is first by providing usually email address, and then he authenticates. Why? Because if you hit office365.com, that server does not know from which customer you are. And that's it. With this technology, it can get the information, and it knows before the validation from which domain the user is probably coming, and that means that the server knows against which trusted identity it should validate the certificate. So now I show you some examples, because I say it's easy. You can think like, oh, Václav is crazy. It's not easy. So I show you how it looks like. Yeah? This is an example, and it's complete. Yeah? Implementation of this technology. This is JavaScript code which is running in the browser, and if the extension is present and the API is present, yeah, it checks if the user is authenticated, and if so, yeah, if the response is yes, authenticated, it gets the certificate. Yeah, so it asks the client, give me the user's identity, and what comes is XML file, signed XML file, which says who is the user, and then what we do, that's very nice. Yeah? We have a hidden field in the form, so we store the XML file in this hidden field and post the form back to the server. Yeah? That's it, on the client side. You can copy-paste this to all your browser-enabled systems like crazy. Yeah? And this is very nice, you know. Your implementation even does not need to be so nice, because this shows some black rectangle, and it says, you know, it records to the console that nobody is authenticated. You do not need it. It will work even without it. Okay, so we post the identity of the user to the server, and we are running out of the time. Okay, we need something on the server side. So what we need, only two things: a key store where we keep the trusted certificate, and we need an action, one call to OpenSSL. Who is familiar with OpenSSL? You use it when you issue your certificate. Hey guys, raise your hands, do not sleep. Yeah. So again, it is very easy to implement. Yeah, and that makes sense. I need to go faster. So this is example of the server-side implementation. You know, maybe if you are really experienced, you notice these are macros you can find in the header file of the OpenSSL library. So if you will dive deep into this, you will see that underneath these macros you can find real hardcore C code, but you do not need to work with. This is really, you know, I use copy-paste from the existing implementation, and that's how it works. So you create a key store in the memory. You read the certificate from your, you know, it can be even a file in the file system. You init, you set flags. This is very important, because this is most important, that you accept portal chain. So if there is another CA, you can have some just in the middle, and still can work. And then this is the core. This call, verify cert, and OpenSSL returns okay or not okay. Done. If it's okay, that means that the XML attribute name contains the name of the user. Email, no? CN, GUID, etc. Does it look complicated? No, it's easy. So, of course, that was about SP, but it can work exactly in the same way on the IdP side. It's the same. Your browser is talking to a server. Yeah? It can be SP, it can be IdP. When you get redirected, or you can use even IdP initiated SSO, then you talk to IdP directly. IdP can do exactly the same. So it does not need to use cookie. It can just use the client, use a native host broker to read the information about the user's identity. And believe me or not, this is much faster than cookies. I'm not able to do this fast enough. Our technology, our poor technology from crazy Czech Republic, is able to handle 10,000 requests per second. 10,000, 1,0,0,0 per second. Of course, in case of this technology, it does not matter how many browsers your users are using. If they exit the browser, start the browser, still very easy. So, real life, yeah, you can for the big players, if they support SAML, JSON Web Tokens, you can integrate your IdP and you okay. Thank you. You okay, yeah. But if you talk to somebody small, the company which runs the cafeteria for you, and they respond like SAML, is that a sauerkraut? Yeah? So you can tell them, hey guys, this is very easy, just copy paste these two examples, we will help you, and during one afternoon you're done. One of the biggest company in Czech Republic which provides a car protection, you can put some small box into your car and they know where the car is, etc. The name of the company is s.r.o, and they have, I don't know, up to 10,000 clients. They did implement this in one day, and they can offer very, very, very secure and fast and nice authentication for for their clients. Access Manager, that's important message, is the same. Yeah? Access Manager can work in both IdP and SP scenarios. Access Manager is able to accept authentication via SAML. So if you connect Access Manager, if the Access Manager does not support this yet, it will come, you can do it. Done. It's very easy configuration. Oh, it's demo time, but I'm sorry, I have 3 minutes. Any questions, please? Complaints? Who is not convinced? Who does not agree? Wake up! Wake up! Okay, so I show you one trick as a demo. I'm connected from here to Prague. This is my poor Windows virtualized workstation, and it seems that I lost. I'm not on my connection to the internet. It should be. Let's try something. Aha.
You have to accept again.
Yes.
What's in the middle.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Fine. So I have the client here. I'm authenticated to Prague, and because I like real exciting situations, I show you how it can work with old donkey IE. So, of course, our technology Secure AnyBox supports this, so I have the client here, and I show you how I can authenticate using the certificate to, in fact, Secure AnyBox in Prague is a cloud service. We have tens of customers using it. Yeah, they have own domains, so, and you will see a black rectangle for a short while, and when you see the black rectangle, that's the time when the authentication is provided. I'm in. Yeah. So okay, fairly it was half a second. You agree? Yeah. So this is how it can work, and of course, same technology can be used. So this is the situation when SP supported. If I try Office 365, Microsoft is not compatible with us yet. It's coming. But I can integrate my IdP, yeah. So I can do this. Of course, it's Microsoft. It takes. You see that KeyShield did it in again half a second, and Microsoft needs a little bit more. But finally, I'm in. So you have seen both scenarios: SP using native host and IdP using native host. Oh, it's Microsoft. Sorry. You see that if you have 10,000 clients, it's very easy for us. If you have 50,000 clients, it's still very easy for us. That's it. I thank you very much for attending my session, and also, I have to say hello because again we are leaving this evening. If you want to see more demos and want to talk with me about anything, I'll be here until we leave for the evening event. Thank you very much.